It's almost time. It's time to dye my roots. They're peeking out. They're peeking out. Guys, I have so much gray hair. I think it's almost time. I think it's almost time to just go gray, to just accept it. Hello, everyone. We've got a bunch of questions to answer for the Family Rules, Chores, and Systems for Discipline Workshop members. If you're not a member at any time, if you decide you want to be one, you can comment help or help, depending on what degree of help or help you need, whichever one speaks to you more. Help or help on this video and or in the comment section, and our robot will send you a link, or you can just DM us. DM us the word help or help, and our robot will send a link. So I'm going to pull up the questions. I hopped off of them for a minute. I have to kind of like copy and paste them somewhere so they're easy to read. Somebody has a 5-year-old who's got some like fighting, physical aggression. They've been doing great with the rules. However, the 5-year-old has a short fuse and will hit and pinch, so not keeping their hands to themselves. And they, in their system, have decided that 5 cards. Breaking that rule, putting your hands on somebody is 5 cards. But he's so heated that he's got to have a timeout. Just so he can calm down. It feels like a double punishment to do the cards afterwards. So, to me, a timeout and the cards, neither one of those are punishments. Punishments intentionally cause pain. So having somebody remove themselves so that they can physiologically calm down is what you want them doing when they are dysregulated. So you're just teaching and kind of forcing them into the behavior that you want. And yes, so now here's the thing, if they can take themselves away before acting out in anger, frustration, and irritation, they don't get the cards. So I am using this system, I'm on their side, teaching them how not to get cards. I think that's a piece that a lot of parents miss in the workshop, that you are actively all the time teaching your kids how to not get cards. You're on their side. Okay, like next time, when you want to put your hands on somebody, like you gotta physiologically calm down. Because when you're not physiologically calm, you're going to do and say things that get you cards. And that's just the way brains work. So my oldest, my kid, I have a kid with ADHD, and she's, impulse control issues, and things will fall out of her mouth. So she started doing, if I were to just say time out, that wouldn't deter her from doing that thing again next time. And so I hear some people say that like their kid's therapist, like, maybe a kid has ADHD and their kid's therapist gives them says they need to stop doing this system, that they should only be working with positive rewards. I have a lot of things to say about that. Just one of which is it didn't work for us. And the positive reinforcement that came later, like maybe with getting a green day at school or something like that, didn't trump the norepinephrine and dopamine hit that kids get, especially people with ADHD get, from hitting somebody or participating in conflict and drama. But the fact that they would have to do some things that don't really produce a ton of dopamine. Sometimes they do. Sometimes doing a chore and doing it well, and my kids will be like, Mom, come look at this. And I get to say wow, that's really great. So the same kid is our best by far kitchen cleaner. And she'll say to me Mom, come look at the kitchen. And I'm like, God damn, it looks like a professional did this. Like she's taking toothpicks to the... So I wouldn't see either of those as a punishment. One is for emotional regulation and what you would want them doing anyway. And one, you're teaching them to skip. like, let's figure out how you're not going to get cards next time and how you're going to get yourself to a timeout to calm down so that you can talk to me about what you want and need. And teaching kids that underneath all anger is a want, a need, a hurt, or a fear. All those things I just said are in our free training. If you comment conflict, it's a how to not get stuck training about communication, which I think is a great add-on to what you're already doing in the Family Rules, Chores, and Systems for Discipline workshop. So yeah, I would do calm down and, oh, okay, you calm down now. Like, let's figure out the cards and also figure out how this isn't going to happen again next time. How do I make discipline work for the discipline system work for a 5-year-old? That post or the question that I just read had to do with a 5-year-old. This system works great for 5-year-olds. If he has the most trouble following rules, it will be great. I have people who tell me that their 4.5-year-olds are doing the best with the system. So it might not be about age, but I would try it. Just try the system. Sorry, I have something blinging me on my computer. Can I share the slides that I reviewed on 1231 somewhere in the membership portal? Not really, but they do live on our Instagram profile. So it will be an all green post that says like Family Rules Q&A from 1231. They're all there. Ta-da! You can pause the video by holding your finger to the screen. Hope that gives you what you need. Do your kids split their earned money into different categories such as spending and saving? So we've gone off and on with this. Currently, my kids are saving. So we have our older kids save a certain amount for a car. And so that's happening. And I don't have them save a certain amount. We have done that in the past. We've had them save 30%. We use Greenlight, which is a debit card for kids. If you comment debit or send us the message debit, I think you get a link where you might get some money off and then I get a little like kickback. But I love Greenlight. My older two also have bank accounts and we don't even use the bank accounts. Greenlight's apps are so great. If they have jobs outside of the home, they can do the automatic deposit into the Greenlight. It is just like a bank, but it's smarter. They can invest, they can save, you can set up chores in there and pay them. They can request payment. If they babysit, they can send their babysitter job a link to pay them. Relatives can pay them through Greenlight for holidays, for birthdays. I love Greenlight. Comment debit. And it's great because you can just like from an app on your phone, you can just shut off spending, or you can only let them spend at certain places or certain kinds of places. So if they lose it, it's just like boop and it's off. And it only it's not like a credit card. They're not, if it gets stolen, like it's not racking up a crap ton of debt. And I get an alert every time they spend money. So my son had a sandwich at Kirkwood Deli yesterday and bling, bling. I see after school he bought a sandwich. I didn't know it was a sandwich, but I knew it was a sandwich because that's what he gets there. So there's just a lot of notifications and communication in place for whatever you're worried about with a regular. I think there's an age that you have to be to have a bank account and a card. So then they can put it on their Apple Pay and bling, when they're out and about. My kids live a very 80s lifestyle. We live in a very safe, walkable town, so they can walk downtown to the coffee shop. They hang out downtown with their friends and they can bling, 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 pay for stuff. That's my paying noise. Question about chores. What do we do about their own spaces or picking up their room, deep cleaning, or organizing their room and bathroom? If that's something you want to work in regularly to your chore system, great. I don't have my general stance on having a room clean is if I can shut their door, then and it doesn't impact me, then that's their business. If I'm like having people over and we live in a 1-story house where their rooms are right off the main area, like I will request like, hey, could you have your room clean by Saturday at noon or Saturday at 2 if I'm having people over at 5. Because I want, like if they forget or they mess up, then, and it's like, and if you don't, and then because I've asked, if they don't have it done by 2, Now their stuff gets taken away because they didn't listen and follow through with something that I've asked, and that breaks a family rule. I think you could also work it in where every week or every other week they're deep cleaning their room, maybe instead of doing the deep clean chores over here. That part is totally up to you. And I don't think that there's a right way, and I don't think that there's a wrong way. I personally let them do what they want to their rooms. And sometimes I go in and I'm like, okay, we've hit my limit. Your room needs to be clean by the end of the weekend. I don't pay for rooms being clean. And then another question about chores that, if so different amounts were associated with different zones of our house. And so they get paid different weekly depending on what their zone is. Yes. Yup. They get paid more for cleaning the kitchen because it's more labor intensive. Long story short, I cleaned houses through graduate school. I know what it takes to clean all these things. So yeah, and my kids will like if one kid needs more money, nobody likes cleaning the kitchen in our house. It's like the worst. When you have the kitchen, it's like, wah. But if you need money, you'll ask your sibling who has the kitchen, can we trade chores or can I do your chore? That happens all the time in our house. I don't care about that. Sure, trade chores. Hang on. What's blinging me on my computer? I don't know. I can't find it. Our big feeler is our younger one, 10. She likes to parent her big sis and calls her out on things all the time. What do you do regarding giving cards when kids tell on each other? I'm worried they will both constantly be trying to get the other one. So we call this card policing. I don't think that I've actually added it to the rules. I don't think my kids have noticed that I haven't added it to our rules. But sometimes I just make rules up and nobody's looking closely at that family rules document. And I'll just say things like, oh, card policing, that's 2 cards. So if my kids can come to me and say things like, so if somebody's like, so-and-so's doing this, or like, oh, 2 cards, like, no. But if they say, Mom, I'm not really sure, but I think she's calling me stupid. I think that's some cards. Or can't resolve something on their own. Hey, Mom, this is what's happening. I've tried to work it out with them. I need help. Totally okay with that. But telling in a way that is drama-filled, I'm not down with. I don't necessarily say that's drama-filled and I don't like it. I'll say, here's how we do this. Here's what I want you to say. Here's how I want you to come to me. Do something. Yeah, so it's saying like don't know who to believe. When there's spats between kids, I tell my kids that I will not be a referee. That I will not be a referee, and if it didn't happen when I was around, I can't help. But if you don't want it to teach them that like interactions they don't just go here for the most part. So they start somewhere, and to come to you if they feel it escalating, and they can't figure out how to get it back to here. So I tell them like, often with 2 of my kids, they will get into it when I'm not around. Things will happen that are not okay. And then because I wasn't there and because they let it escalate to here, and then by the time I do walk in and hands are on each other or things are being said, now everybody's got cards. And when people are mad about that, I will talk to them individually and say, because they will be like, she started it. I broke this rule because she did X. I said the nasty thing because she said this. I hit her because she did. Your behavior is your responsibility. Your behavior is I don't care what the other person did. I say the same thing in couples counseling. They'll be like, oh, let me get the video out from our in-home video. And I'm like, no. I don't want to see it. Your behavior is your responsibility. So even if somebody acts out on you disrespectfully, that doesn't give you the right to disrespect them. You can walk away. You can protect your peace. You can go to a parent and say, hey, like, this is going on. Like, it's not good. I'm taking myself to my room. But I really wanted to watch the show in there. You know, like, get a parent involved before, like, don't do the whole back and forth. So then they both get cards. And then afterwards, I'm teaching them what to do instead next time so they're not both getting cards. At the point, what point should they have come to me and said, hey, I'm about to throw down. Like, I don't want to. I need help. I have 3 kids, 11, 8, and 6. I would imagine I'd have to roll out the chores for the older kids, as you stated in the video, and with the younger plan as shown for my 6-year-old, not necessarily. Would all of my kids get a baseline of $1 per year of age? So the dollar per year of age was in the first chore system. With this age of kids, I would probably use the older kid system and do a price per zone. But if your 6-year-old isn't capable of doing the full zone by themselves, like it's too much for the 6-year-old, I would negotiate with them how you want to handle that. So with our youngest kid, that looked like me saying, okay. And when she was 4 and 5, that looked like, hey, you could get $30 for cleaning the kitchen yourself, or you can get half if I help you. So I'll do half and you do half. And it didn't take her very long to realize I could get all this money if she just didn't help me. So there was a little bit of like a learning process with her. And she, I think by 6, had kicked me out. But I think that takes more time with younger. The younger they are, the more time it takes for them to be independent about it. Okay, the turning in times for phones that you showed on the examples, what ages is this for? Doesn't matter. It matters what time your kids need to wake up, how old they are, and what their sleep needs are. So I reference a PDF online from a sleep expert that tells me how much sleep my kids need by age. And then I do the math and I figure out what's a reasonable time for them to go to bed. And then their phones go away like 45 minutes before that, so that they can like brush teeth, read, and like get like wind down. Also, how do you handle intangible things like attitudes between siblings, towards parents, bickering, or excessive joking that's rude, or replies from younger ones like, I don't know what that means. I'm not even going to say it. I don't even know. All of this is somewhat addressed in the rules. I do think you have to be a little bit advanced to call out intent or nonverbal communication, which is what you're saying. So attitude is nonverbal communication. And you can't just say attitude, because they'll say, I don't have an attitude, and you'll say, yes, you do, and they'll say, no, I don't, and you'll say, yes, you do, and then it'll go nowhere. So for starters, the How to Not Get Stuck workshop, we kind of I put words around a lot of that, and label a lot of that, and name a lot of that. So most of what you're probably talking about is under the umbrella of criticism. Saying, I'm right, you're wrong. Saying, I'm smart, you're stupid. Which I can say without any words. So there's a long story where, like I helped my daughter fix something not long ago, and it was something on her computer that she needed help with, and she had been nagging me, and I was annoyed by the time I got there, and then I had to toggle one thing over, and it worked, and I was like, you're almost 16, like you should know more about technology than I do. And she said, I hear you're calling me stupid, which she loves. She loves to catch me in my not so great parenting moments. Loves it. And I said, you're right. So there are times when that happens. Like, there are times when my kids infer that I'm stupid, and I will say, I hear you calling me stupid. And they'll like kind of, and then they'll course correct. I don't necessarily give cards for that. I've got a reel that is pinned to the top of my page where it's like criticism from a teenager. You know, kids are always saying things like, God, there's never food around here. There's never any food around here. After you've spent a gazillion dollars at the grocery store and Costco. But if underneath all criticism is a want, a need, a hurt, or a fear, I decode the need. I hear you need help figuring out what to eat for lunch. Now, if that gets met with, I need you to be a better grocery shopper, now there's cards. But if I say, I hear you need help figuring out what to eat for lunch, instead of meeting that criticism with defensiveness, and my kid, this true story, my kid does this, I give her some options of what to eat for lunch. A few weeks later, she looks at me through gritted teeth one morning and says, I need help figuring out what to eat for breakfast. And I said, good job. Because what was she doing? She emotionally regulated, and she had impulse control, and she had great communication. So this isn't just about doling out the consequence. It's teaching them how to not get cards. You see what I'm saying? And if they're open to the feedback, I don't necessarily like give a card for that. My husband is not a warm person. He struggles with giving compliments and easily hands out criticism to all of us. I'm feeling a little stuck and trying to stop the cycle because I don't want to criticize his criticizing. I've watched the How to Not Get Stuck training and I'm working through the Learn How to Fight course, but it is hard to be doing it one-sided. What advice do you give someone who is tackling this issue without a lot of buy-in from their partner? So I tell people all the time, I came from one of the most critical families that exists. They could call you an effing idiot without saying any of those words. Like, who cut these onions? That's how they... Judgy questions. So it was a lot of criticism in disguise, so kind of hard to deal with. But I say all the time that I never sat my husband or anyone in my family down and taught them this stuff explicitly. I just taught them how to treat me, letting what I know about good communication and what works and what doesn't, what increases emotional intimacy in relationships and what deteriorates relationships, and let that inform where my standards, boundaries, and expectations were, where my line is. So if somebody criticizes me, I'll say things like, yeah, you don't want to, if somebody criticizes you, like if my husband says, you loaded this dishwasher wrong, I could come back defensively and say, you're so critical, like, loosen up. Would that be justified? Yes. Would it get us anywhere different next time? No. Is it teaching anybody how to treat me? Nope. But if I say, I'm not really open to criticism at this time, but you are more than likely to rearrange the dishwasher to your liking. Well, if you put this here and you put this... I am not open to criticism at this time, but you are more than welcome to reload the dishwasher to your liking. That says, like, your happiness is your job, not mine. That says, I'm not into criticism. Like, no thanks. Keep it over there. So is it hard to address all those things in a way that you're not seeing on TV and like you probably never saw in your upbringing? Yes. But it's like, I tell people I want their tone to be like they are saying no thank you to mustard on their pastrami sandwich at the deli. Like, oh, no thanks, I don't want mustard. Sorry, I didn't say that. No, not open to criticism. but you're more than welcome to rearrange the dishwasher to your liking. So my daughter will like look at me about my makeup or about my outfit, and I will go, I'm not open to criticism at this time. Your eyebrows, which I didn't do anything to my eyebrows today. Your unsolicited advice. Unsolicited advice is cards. So there are some of this is built in, but you have to be good at knowing like what's unsolicited. So I think that How to Not Get Stuck video breaks this down even more if you have trouble like you finding yourself in back and forth with kids about some kind of like not so tangible or God, what's it called? Subjective things. To make them, to give you more words and more common language to put around those things. But I think you're on the right track with the how to fight course. So I think that teaches people a lot about how to address relationally damaging interactions in a way that doesn't continue the cycle, like fighting criticism. You don't want to fight fire with fire. You don't want to fight criticism with criticism. We often have a babysitter with the kids after school. What is the best way to incorporate her into this? Incorporate her. My kids are older. My kids who hated this system will say things like about the families that they babysat for. They'll be like, they need this. And I think that babysitters, like, they don't have a lot of like say. They don't have a lot of ways to like reinforce anything. And I think that's kind of can set the dynamic up to fail sometimes. So I think this is great to give babysitters as a tool. Like, and when I would leave, I had our family rules out when my kids were little. And my kids were little, we had just like a short list of family rules. It wasn't as developed as what you get in the Family Rules, Chores, and Systems for Discipline workshop. But like, for instance, I was okay if my kids jumped on the couch. And I wanted my babysitter to know that so that my kids weren't getting in trouble for jumping on the couch and then telling her we're allowed to jump on the couch and then she doesn't know who to believe. So yeah, I think I think that this is a great tool for babysitters. How do you handle it when, as a parent, you think that the child is talking to you disrespectfully, but they don't think so? Okay, already covered that. Tone. I think it's important to put words around the tone. I hear you're calling me stupid, or that feels disrespectful. Can you say that in another way? What do you need? What do you want? What are you afraid of? What hurts? And if they can't, like, so let me think of, there's a video pinned to the top of my page that is about my teens saying, why are you wearing that to each other? I could be like, well, that wasn't nice. And one of them could go, well, I was just asking a question. Which is why there's a rule, no judgmental why questions. No judgmental why questions, because they imply you shouldn't be wearing that. That outfit is disgusting and ugly. Now, they're not saying that, but they are. So putting words around the nonverbal communication, I think, is really important. It's surprisingly easier to do than you think it is. I think I had some more questions here. Advice on constant return to behavior. Having a problem with dysregulation in 6-year-old with ADHD. Says, come and get me to little sis. Always ends in tears for her and dysregulation for him. ADHDers have a hard time learning from mistakes. ADHDers have a hard time learning from mistakes. And if it keeps ending in a way that doesn't work, you might need to make come and get me or tag off limits. Like if tag is off limits for everybody and anybody who participates, they get cards. Whether they say come and get me or they're chasing. Yeah. So somebody says, I struggle with ADHD kids because it's not like it's their will not to have self-control. It's in their brain chemistry, etc., right? Yes. So ADHD kids lack the structure on the inside, but they do beautifully with structure on the outside. So if I talk about my ADHD and impulsive things coming out of her mouth with the people that live in her house, because there are very little consequences that she cares about, like if she says something nasty to a sibling, that will deteriorate the sibling relationship, but that really doesn't motivate her to change. She's not in an age where she cares to have a great relationship with a younger sibling, you know? But outside of our house, she would never do that. Because there's more structure in place. Because she knows if she said something like that to somebody out there, they would have nothing to do with her. There would probably be some like social shame or people talking about her, stuff going around the internet. You know, like there's a real consequence that she cares about out there. There's more structure on the outside of your home in terms of behavior. That's why your kids are better for other people than they are for you. There are more invisible social structures in place, and they know you never. So this system, what it does is it puts more structure on the outside. But the phrasing of your question says that you're thinking about the consequences as punishments, and they're not. If you deliver them in a way that's without shame and judgment and criticism, they're not punishments. It's just like, whoops. Judgmental why question. There's a reel pinned to the top of my page about why are you wearing that? Watch it and see how we moved through with my ADHD or her asking that question, and with this system, how she responds. It's like without that extra structure. I think about it like you're at a bowling alley and you have bumpers. Like people with ADHD need bumpers, and this system is bumpers on the outside. Like, unless my kids, whether a kid has ADHD or not, just a grumpy teen, a sleep-deprived kid, they all, sleep-deprived means your brain is more ADHD-like. Like, they'll need more structure on the outside to keep them from doing and saying things they know that when they're calm or well-rested, like, don't behoove them in the moment. So yes, it's just giving those brains more structure on the outside. So it's giving the brain what it needs. So 2 things motivate ADHD brains: urgency and interest. Urgency and interest. Norepinephrine, dopamine. Urgency, interest. If they don't care about the natural consequence of deteriorating a sibling relationship, neither of those things exist to keep them from saying and doing not nice things to the sibling. If they know there's 10 cards on the other side of saying, why are you wearing that? There's some urgency there. There's like, oop, I gotta control that impulse. They have more help to control the impulse to avoid the cards. Then the strange thing that happens, in the avoidance of the cards, the sibling relationship improves. And the sibling relationship, the more it improves, the more issues that they have controlling their impulse. So this system like feeds itself in a really good way. It should be making sibling relationships better. It should be making parent-child relationships better. But it utilizes meaningful consequences as boundaries. Like you have a boundary to hold, and that doesn't rely on your anger, frustration, and irritation, which deteriorates the relationship, which has kids less likely to please you because they don't want to please somebody who's disrespectful and they don't respect. I'm telling you, when I created the system, I didn't anticipate the ways that it would work. All of them. So I've thought a lot about how it's worked in ways that I didn't anticipate and why. It's very interesting. My preteen and teen are always lying about small stuff, brushing teeth, putting on deodorant. I keep hearing, I keep hearing it because they don't feel like they can be honest. I keep hearing it's because they don't feel like they can be honest. Um, you know, yeah, I think lying is like one. I think sometimes it's developmentally appropriate, or it's typical, like that kids will lie about stuff that they don't want to get in trouble for or they don't want to be judged about. I think people of all ages lie about things that they don't want to avoid judgment. Um, and it might be that, they feel like they can't be honest with you, or they might be judging themselves, or that they know you're going to judge them. Um, but I think, brushing their teeth and putting on deodorant have some like built-in natural consequences that are really lovely. Like I didn't have to police that too much because at some point my kids got feedback from the outside world that they were stinky. And when you start to care about looking or smelling good for somebody, you'll you'll be brushing those teeth and showering a lot. All my kids have just figured that out. I will hear now that, like, one of my kids is like, I went sometimes a week without brushing my teeth, and I'm like, that is really gross. When they were like big enough to do it by themselves, but and I didn't feel like I had to monitor, but not quite big enough, I guess, to care. But like if I would smell their breath, and I would be like, go brush your teeth. Like, but I wasn't like coming in their room and putting my nose in their mouth every night to make sure. Uh, it doesn't, so somebody asks about the cards rewiring the chemicals. No, it doesn't rewire the chemicals. It works with the brain that they have. So we're not going to like take the ADHD out of the brain, but we're giving the ADHD brain the structure that it needs to perform. So if they're ADHDers tend to do well in are things like ER doctors, things where there's like high stakes. If you have an emergency, the person, you need to be stabbed with an EpiPen. You want somebody with ADHD there because that norepinephrine comes and they are laser focused. Everybody else is freaking the F out, and somebody with ADHD is like on it. So pilots, emergency room people, like anything where there's high stakes and high urgency, they do pretty well in. I work with a lot of parents whose teenagers and adults who didn't do well with ADHD in high school, but ended up going into like fields like medicine. And once they were in a high stakes program, got all A's. This whole like turn homework in sometime before the end of the semester and due dates aren't real, terrible for kids with ADHD. But if there's structure and a deadline and urgency, they do well with that. So this is just giving them the structure and the urgency on the outside because they lack the chemicals to give that to themselves on the inside. It doesn't change their brain. It's giving them the structure for the things that they need. So 9-year-old girl, well behaved outside of the house, but having major meltdowns every day in the house. Best way to give cards during meltdowns, or do you wait until they are calm? Are the meltdowns at you? Are they acting out on anger, frustration, or irritation at you? In our house, all feelings are okay and welcome and valid, but acting out on people in anger is not okay. So you can be angry with me, you can be angry with the system, and here's a list of things you can do in anger. And so I want to make sure that, one, your 9-year-old knows the things that she can do when she's emotionally overwhelmed, and helping her make that list. My kids can scream and yell in their room. They can beat the heck out of their bed, but they cannot punch their wall. They cannot hurt themselves or our property. But here's a list of things you can do. You can come to me and say, like, I need a hug. You can talk to me about what you want, what you need, what hurts, what you're afraid of, but you cannot scream and yell at me. So making sure, one, she has a list of things to do when she is in a meltdown. And two, like investigating like what these meltdowns are about. What does she need? Sounds like she's having a hard time. Does she need more sleep? Is something going on at school? So getting to the feelings underneath the needs, the wants, needs, hurts, and fears. So understanding the meltdowns, but helping her get to a place where she can skip that damaging part and just get straight to what does she want? What does she need? What hurts? What is she afraid of? Is the quickest way to get to solutions and resolutions. Oh, I see another question, but it feels incomplete and I don't know what it means, but I think what I just said pretty much answers it. So, woo, that was a long one. Great questions, guys. Great questions. Okay, like I said, if you want to join us, you can comment help or HALP. I also want to know if you guys think it would be helpful to do like there are so many people that have joined us over the last few weeks, and I get a lot of the same questions on repeat. Not in I just think it's like part of figuring out this new way of working in a household. I don't know. I've been thinking about doing like, oop, sorry. I've been thinking about doing like an expert hour where like we have a Zoom, like a private Zoom, where we can work through some of your like specific to you stuck spots. So let me know. Let me know if you think that's a good idea. But yeah, so this will be saved on our page as well. If you want to see one of the last ones, they live on the page. They're the green squares or rectangles on our profile, and they are labeled by date. So thanks for joining us, and let us know your questions, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.